All right, Coach. It's the highlight of the summer for you guys. U.S. Olympic trials coming up this week. I got to think it's a momentous occasion for your program. You've got a dozen people between alumni and current student athletes, and even assistant coach Kevin Swander that are going. You got a lot of people going, and that says a lot about your program and where it's at right now to have that many representatives at U.S. Olympic trials.
Yeah, it's been a good few years. I mean, I spent a few minutes a couple nights ago writing a letter to Micah Flack and kind of reflecting on 4 years ago when we were out at Omaha and the experience that was. And I really believe that was a week that really started to put our program on the map from a national perspective here. We'd done a lot of stuff with the NCAAs and with SECs, but being able to put Michael in the final of the 200 butterfly in 2012 and put him in a position to make that Olympic team took us kind of to a level with our recruiting that we had never been to before. You fast forward 4 years, and here we are with, like you said, a dozen people going to the meet. And, the interesting thing about this is, and this is what's kind of fun for coaches, is everybody that we have that's here going to this meet has never been before. This is their first time, and that's what happens when, you have every 4 years you have a big meet like this. So there's a lot of prep that goes into it, and there's a lot of emotional work prior to leaving to go to Omaha that's just as important as the physical work because, basketball players, football players, these guys are used to they're used to performing in front of big crowds. Swimmers are not. We have 5,000-6,000 people at a meet. That's a giant event for us. And now, U.S. Olympic trials, they've sold out 7 straight days, 2 sessions a day, 18,000 seats. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so what we have to do, we have to get these folks out there that are, that are new, that have never been in this environment. And we're going to spend the first day when we get there just letting them walk around the arena, getting used to where everything is and getting used to just the size of the place. But thinking back over the last 4 years and how far we've come, and not only do we have a dozen going to Olympic trials, but we have guys that are already qualified, guys and ladies that are already qualified for Rio. So there's a lot going on. It's a good time to be a part of the Gamecock swimming program, and we're looking forward to big things over the next couple of weeks.
Let's start with your guys that are going. Cody Beckmeyer swimming multiple events, but you got a lot of guys that'll be there. Jack Smith just got his trials cut, and Bohan and Bolin. You got a pretty good group. What do you expect out of the guys?
I think, like I said, it's hard because they've never been there before. Honestly, these guys in some senses are all freshmen when you go to a meet like this. But Cody has the most opportunities. He qualified in the most races. Jonathan Boland's got one event. Jack Smith's got one event. Jeremiah Bohan's got one event. And that tells you how incredibly hard it is to not just to make this meet. The top 1% of swimmers in the nation qualify for this meet. And the fact that we have a dozen there is a pretty big deal for our program. So, looking at these guys, we have very specific goals for them. We want to see how they swim their races. We want to put up the best possible performance. Obviously, we want to go in there. We want to hit as many lifetime bests as we can. What we try to explain to our athletes is improvement. That's what we're looking for. Progress. That's what we're looking for. If we can come out with lifetime bests in this meet, then it's a success. You're looking at roughly 100 people per event at Olympic trials. They're going to take 2 to represent the U.S. at the Olympics. Outside of about maybe 15 people that have a realistic shot of making an Olympic team, we're just going there to push ourselves as hard as we can, just like most people are. If we find ourselves in a position where we get a second chance to swim, then we'll make the most of it. But Cody has the most races, and these other guys are training specifically for their race, whether it be the 200 IM, whether it be Jonathan Boland's 100 backstroke or Jeremiah Bohan's 100 breaststroke. Very specifically, they're training for those events. And so Cody had to have a little bit more variety in his training to prepare him for the different races. But I think they're ready. I think they're going to be good.
Women's side, pretty similar. You got Emma that'll swim 3 different events, and then a big collection that'll swim. One, I know Kirsten Duran is swimming both breaststroke events, and I got to think the goals for the ladies are similar to what you've got for the men.
I think, with the exception of Emma's had her cuts for a little bit over a year. Meredith Vay's had her cuts for a little bit over a year. But when you look at Taylor Worrell, when you look at when you look at Taylor and when you look at Kirsten, both those young ladies have just gotten their cuts within the last month. So this is still a whirlwind for them. Again, we're going to go out and we're going to try to put our best possible times up. Emma, a good goal for Emma would be top 16, maybe in her 4 IM. She has a very legitimate shot at doing that. And I think that would be excellent for her. Being able to be on a stage that big and perform like that would be a huge achievement. So I think all of our girls, are very well prepared right now. They're all mentally in a very good place. But again, the same thing with the guys. We're going to have to get them out there and get them acclimated relatively quickly. Just with the size of the place and how they're swimming. Probably Emma and Jonathan are probably going to be the two most, from a physical component of their race, that are most effective, because that is such a big arena. Backstrokers are not used to swimming in an arena that big, and so how that affects them is in a smaller pool, a smaller facility, backstrokers mark their lines on the roof. So they essentially hold their straight line by watching lines on the roof, where if you're in a dome and it seats 18,000 people, one, that roof is a long way from the pool, and two, it's also angled. So that takes a lot of getting used to. So from a physical perspective, those folks are the ones that have to get the most practice in when we get there. But really, you just have to let them get over the wow factor and get ready to go. I think they'll be ready. We're going to get them out there and let them be starstruck for a little bit, and then we're going to get down to business, and I think our group's ready.
Talk specifically about Kevin Swander. Your assistant coach kind of went out, and I know it was it's something that you're proud of, but also have had a lot of fun with. He obviously doesn't train the way that a student athlete trains anymore, which is not to say he doesn't get in the pool. He's still in much better shape than most people, but to go in without really training and to swim a trials cut and to go to Omaha for him, what's that like for your program?
I encourage my staff to always work out. I think it's an easy way to bust up some stress, and Kevin has really kind of stayed in the water just from a recreational standpoint, for the better part of 2 or 3 years now. But he may go swim for 30 minutes here and 45 minutes here. In no way would I ever call it training. There's a big difference between swimming and training. And so, a few weeks ago he said, I've been kind of picking up the pace a little bit. I'd like to try to sprint and see what it looked like. And, he did one swim off the blocks and was about a half second faster than Niels Witt-Glossen, who was one of our All-Americans in the breaststroke events. I said, Kevin, that looked really good. And he said, I think I'd like to race it. We'll see what happens. And I told him, I said, you may be able to get a trial cut. And he kind of laughed. He said, nah. And he got up and he raced, and just an unbelievable, in his first race since the 2012 Olympic semifinal in the 100 breaststroke, this was his first race, and he got the Olympic trial cut. And so it just goes to show you, what an immense amount of talent he has. But also, I think being a coach has also brought to light a lot of the things that he didn't have when he was an athlete. So he's much more able to identify his weaknesses as a swimmer because he's a coach now, and he knows more about how to fix those weaknesses. So I think with him, a lot of it is so technically driven with his stroke. But, he came up after it was over, and we were still on the pool deck, and he goes, what do you think? Should I swim it? And I just kind of looked at him. I'm like, really? But he's going to go out and he's going to race, and we'll see where he's at. He's done all this on his own. It's not like I or Coach Bernardino or Coach Vogel have been working with him at all. He's just been swimming. He plays basketball at night for about 2.5 hours. He's pretty much crushing every training philosophy that I ever had. But he's done a great job. He's great for our program. He's a great ambassador for our program. He does a great job coaching and recruiting. We're very proud of him.
And then representing the alumni, you got Micah Flack, who I think has a trials cut in 3 different races. How involved will you be with him? I know he swims with his own club at this point.
Yeah.
But still, it'll be awesome, I know, to see him there and to have somebody who was a big part of your program for 4 years, 5 years really, who's now still swimming well and will be going to Omaha.
Yeah, I can't really put into words how much Mike means to our program. We've had a lot of very, very talented athletes, but Mike just being he's a great athlete and an even better young man. Just how I watched him grow over his 4 years at South Carolina, the things that he achieved, making the final of the 200 butterfly trials, representing the United States at the World University Games in Russia and winning a silver medal there. The things he's done for our program, the leader that he was while he was on our team, he means a lot. And, I saw him just a few weeks ago at a meet in Charlotte, and we had a chance to go get lunch. And, it's one of those things where, as a coach, you're really glad that these young men and women stay attached to our program. We kind of joke around a lot and use the cliche, it's a family, but when they graduate, our coaches want them still around. They pour their lives into our program. We're not just going to dust them to the side, and it's the same thing with Mike. I'm going to be cheering for him as hard as I can. I don't really have the stress that maybe I had last time around because we're not directly responsible for his results this time around. He's going to be racing for a team in Michigan, Club Wolverine. And he swims for a coach up there, Mike Bottom and Dr. Josh White, and both those guys are two of the best swim coaches on this planet. I wish him the best. I really do. This is probably going to be his last run. I can't imagine he's going to be swimming much longer after this. So really, really proud of him. I'm proud of all of our athletes that have made this meet. And looking forward to see what they can do. And then once we get through Olympic trials, we're turning our sights to Rio and focusing on our guys that have and girls that have made that meet.
Big meet lasts almost 2 weeks, especially once you factor in the travel time. So when we reconvene in mid-July to talk about Olympic trials, what do you hope that your guys and gals have accomplished?
I think. What I want is I want them to walk out with the satisfaction of being better than they've ever been before. We're going to shoot for as high as we can. When we walked in the door in 2012, the goal wasn't to make a final in the 200 butterfly. The goal was to be better than we were, than we'd ever been before with Mike and the other guys that were there and the other girls that were there. So this time around, we're going to approach it the same way. And if we can squeeze somebody in there, if Emma Barksdale can have a swim of a life, or if Cody Beckemeyer can, if he can keep hammering away at that mile, who knows what we can do? I'm not going to put it past any of these kids. They've got such work ethic and such a huge heart, and they have such a big desire to be great. When they get there and they get caught up in the moment, if they use it like I hope they do, who knows what they can do? And that's the fun part about this is you get to see these kids surprise themselves. And if we come back here and we're sitting here talking about lifetime bests and second swims, and then I'll have no complaints. I'm really proud for most of them the fact that they just make it. Like I said earlier, 0.58 of 1% of the top swimmers in the country make this meet, and we have a dozen there. So, it's already a victory of sorts, but now we're going to go and try to exceed all of our expectations.
Best of luck to you, Coach, and best of luck to the team.
Thank you.